aren't the droids we're looking for.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's them! Blast them!
Hello everybody and welcome back to another Tactics channel episode. Today we are going to be talking about list building. Hey, something we're all going to do, but not all of us are going to do it the same. But I do think it's a vital, important part of getting better at the game. Whether you're just starting out or you've been playing for a long time, I think that list building is obviously one of the most important things in the game. So today I'm going to talk about some different list archetypes and maybe some foundations that you guys can build your next list off of, or better yet, try something new. I would say one of the biggest things with this is to just be a little more open-minded in terms of what you're willing to play. And when you get down to that, you're really going to be able to learn to play different things. And when you can do that, you can also understand it when it's on the other end of the table. So let's dive right into it as we're going to look at some different lists. So I'm going to pull up here on my computer as I bring you guys along with me. Is the first list archetype I'm going to talk about today is Aggro. Aggro aggressive lists seem to be the name of the game in Legion 2.0. Not saying they're the end-all be-all of the game, but they definitely seem to be taking the popularity over a lot of our other list types that Legion has been nurturing to for a long period of time. So the first one that we're looking at here is an Anakin 501st list. You know it, you hate it, but it's not as good as it used to be. This is one that I've played a ton, and this is the toned down version after the updates. But in this 501st Legion, we have Anakin Skywalker, a couple clone infantry, 4 whole ARC troopers with the clone commanders, giving them those surges, and 2 flamer ATRTs. The whole point of this list is to go that way. You're going towards your opponent, and you're going to try to kill all of their stuff turn 2. Turn 1, you will realize you almost have nothing to shoot at your opponent. Maybe your opponent comes up a little too far and you can, I don't know, scout up an arc, move them, and then shoot at range 2 turn 1. That's definitely happened in a lot of my games. Sometimes Anakin can prepare positions as far as he can, and then if you bring like burst of speed, you can go into them. But for the most part, it doesn't have a lot of round 1 shooting or any type of plink damage. So with that being said, it's not really a shooting list. And round 1, you're going to lose some models as you move up the board depending on the terrain you've been given. But with a good piece of terrain, you can move up this entire army. The main theme of our aggro lists is that I'm going to go take that middle of the board where most of our scoring for these current objectives is, and I'm going to take it early while killing your units in droves. It's going to be a knockout fight the entire game. You are saying, I'm going to lose models, but I'm going to try to make you lose more, and I'm going to score the objective before you ever even think about touching it. And even if you lose the fight with lists like this, you can score a lot of points before they're actually able to peel back Anakin, peel back those flamer ATRTs, those 4 squads of ARC troopers. It's a tough list, and it's just very simplistic. I would say that this is very comfortable for new players as well, is to make a list that just screams going that way. You can look at things like the Wookiee Battle Force, Ewoks, all that kind of stuff to just go at your opponent and bring the fight to them. It's a really good, easy way to learn the game, but like I said, we're not here to just focus on one type of list. If you're this person, you've always been the, yeah, I'm just going to bring a bunch of stuff and go straight at my opponent, fantastic. If you're looking to get better at the game though, I will say that this is one of those list archetypes that holds you back. It really keeps you from understanding the game as full if you only play these types of lists. So it is a lot of fun, it's really good, but for the most part, it's also probably the most simplistic type of list you can bring. In other words, this list doesn't take a ton of brain power once you've figured it out, but there's still a lot of stuff going on here that makes it fun, and most people are going to hate you for bringing it. But this is a version of that list. I'm going to also pull up another list that I've played, and that is going to be another aggro list with Darth Vader, Lord of the Sith, bringing 3 dewbacks with flamers, 6 straight up DLT stormtroopers, and some death troopers with Krennic as well. This is going to be the second list archetype, and I know that you could justify it as being just another aggro list, but this is what I call well-rounded. Okay, so we have aggro and then we have a well-rounded list. A well-rounded list doesn't mean it's better than an aggro list. It's just you're kind of planning on a little bit of everything. You know, the 3 dewbacks with flamers, obviously, yes, they're extremely aggressive. Obviously, Vader's extremely aggressive. But you have 7 units of shooting. So you could call this a force user gunline if you were feeling brave enough. Those are the type of lists that I've always loved and played, but I'd say in the 1,000-point game, it's hard to just call it a force user gunline nowadays, because you usually have things like the dewbacks that you can squeeze into lists. So I think of a lot of our force user gunline lists from the old version of Legion have kind of transformed into a list where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna bring some IRG, or I'm gonna bring Magna Guards, and I'm gonna back up Dooku, or I'm gonna bring Commandos, who knows? Anything you can really want, you can start squeezing in more than just a lightsaber. So this is what I call a well-rounded list. There's nothing crazy here. There's nothing crazily special about this Darth Vader list. And you've probably seen it before if you've played against some Empire. Darth Vader's Courage Bubble is going to allow these dewbacks to come into it, and Krennic's going to give you a Cunning turn 2 card if you just want to go first and flame an entire squad of a doubled up B2, or maybe some Ewoks have magically appeared on the table, whatever your situation is. But regardless, a well-rounded list is going to consist of, you have an answer for everything. You're not amazing at any one thing, but you have an answer for everything. For instance, I don't think these 6 stormtroopers with DLTs are gonna win every gunfight you play. I don't think those 3 dewbacks with Vader are gonna win every melee skirmish against like that Anakin list we just looked at. I think that you will lose that pretty handily. But if you're using all of your pieces at once and you're threatening your opponent with melee, and you're shooting them, and Krennic's playing good cards, maybe the Death Troopers are giving the dewbacks another order, maybe Vader, implacable, kill 2 units, and now you're flaming the other big squad, yay! You just have more options. You have more choices, but you also have more options. So I would say this is actually kind of the hardest list to learn. Not this one particularly, this is pretty straightforward, which is why I'm giving it to you guys, but playing these lists that have more than just one method of winning or one method of getting your opponent off the table is a little more difficult. You have to learn to make your opponent make bad choices. I see tons of people playing this type of list because it's also the most common in general, because when new players and old players alike are putting together their collection, they usually have a little bit of everything, so a little bit of everything ends up in their list. With that being said, you gotta learn to put everything at the right time. If you don't have your unit shooting and Vader's in by himself and the dewbacks are a turn away, he's just gonna get focused and die. That's probably one of the #1 things that I tell new players when I'm playing them. I'm like, yeah, like Dooku dove into my lines, he killed a bunch of stuff, and I would have been really worried about him if I had other things to be worried about. If your units were up closer, if your 6 stormtroopers were closer to me and shooting me as well as Vader just taking out half my army, I would be terrified. But sometimes we mistime what we do with our stuff. So this is gonna take a little more practice, but it's also the most rewarding. So, the next one we're gonna look at is a gunline list. And these gunline lists are probably one that I'm the most familiar with, just in my generality of Legion. I played all of these, mind you, a ton, but I love gunline lists. And I would say that these lists are the ones that really dominated the old Legion, and now they're probably the worst one. Unfortunately, the game's really close, so it's hard to make gunlines work. Not saying it's not possible, and there's a lot of people that can pull it off, but if you don't have a couple melee responses, you can just get something tied up in your army in this current version and never get it pulled out. So this double bounty list with Krennic, IG-88, Imperial Officer, Boba Fett, couple Shores, couple Mortars, Imperial Death Troopers, then 3 Range Troopers is a gunline list that I've played, trying to speak from a point of familiarity once again, but I know that you probably could pull up a better gunline list. Heck, go get Anakin and just make it 8 squads of ARC troopers with snipers. I played that with Rex a couple times, and it's obviously really good as well. But I think this is a little more true to the sense of just pure shooting, pure gunline, and this is something in Old Legion that was really good. Now, not as much. So I don't want to discourage you for not playing these type of lists, but you may do something a little different than me and throw in an IRG, throw in a dewback, throw in Vader, take out IG-88 and Boba. They suck anyways. But jokes aside, Boba and IG give you enough objective play with bounty and the fact they are actually pretty good units that can pick up models pretty quick, that you have some objective play. The only problem with this version of the game is I think you want to move up to the objectives and start scoring ASAP. You could maybe give up round 2 scoring if you're playing a list like this. That would be my main piece of advice strategy-wise, is you also have a little bit of simplicity, just like the aggro list, in the sense that you're really just focused on shooting. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. With this list, I would say that the biggest thing that you're really trying to accomplish is to just whittle down your opponent turn 1 as much as possible, that by the time turn 2 rolls around, you can justify going in and maybe losing a couple models of your own to do this. You'd be surprised what objectives you can play with ranged troopers, and the fact they can just move around in any gun line, and the fact you can have, you know, a unit chasing a shifting priorities objective and you still have range on things to keep shooting them and shooting them and shooting them as you secure the objective that's, you know, magically floating to the side of the table. With this being said though, I think this is like top list back in the old day, now kind of down here the current day. Once again, whether you're casual or competitive, I'm not telling you to or not to play this, but I do think you might struggle a little more if you take this route. But gunline lists are fantastic. Once again, my only other complaint is they are simplistic, just like aggro lists. You're gonna miss out on key components of the game. But I will say, I think you learn a little more playing some gun lines, especially in the current meta, by how you can still utilize positioning and staging, like we talked about in the last video, to make sure your shooting units are safe from something like Vader's lightsaber or some Black Suns moving up and blasting your squad. Using your range 4 bands, using your range stick to your advantage is a very key component of playing these gun lines, but there's a lot less to work with now that the board is so much closer. Moving on, we have my last, but also my favorite type of list, which is an idea list. And when I say idea list, I mean some madman like my good buddy Travis's list that I've pulled up here has an idea. The one we're looking at, there's only one idea. I hoped you figured it out before I said it, but it's standbys. He has brought 5 MK2s and 5 Rebel veterans, all with Comtex, not all with them, but 2 with HQ uplink, and all of the MK2 7-link targeting array. Essentially, short gist of this list, he's giving out orders to all of his vets as much as humanly possible, and he's gonna have a total of 5 standbys with aims 3 out of 5 turns pretty much, if they're not dead, which does happen. With this being said though, this is an idea list, and I love Travis for this because, you know, we don't have the same brains as Legion players, but I love these type of lists. It's like the guy that brings, you know, quad mandos, stuff like that. It isn't just the fact that there's just, oh yay, there's a whole bunch of the same unit. No, there's some thought behind what the idea is. They can be way more complicated as well. All types of different lists work on this. When people were using Jin and Han Solo and Ewok squads to use Han's 2-pip and make them shoot at them, that was a pretty crazy list idea that made people go against it. All these kind of lists are ideas. They're not necessarily on paper something that you'd be like, man, that's a terrifying list. Most people are not going to flinch an eye at 5 Rebel veterans. But there's so many things you don't realize until you play this list. And this is honestly what inspired me to make this video, is playing against this list with Travis. I played that Anakin aggro list versus this, and I was like, man, this is a really unique challenge. When it comes to list building and when you get to tournaments, you're gonna have 2 types of people. 1 playing the meta, 2 playing the counter meta. Yes, some people may bring other stuff, but for the most part, you're not gonna show up to a tournament for a weekend or travel so and so far, unless it's a local or anything like that, to just lose because you brought a bad list. So the same thing is true with you guys, in the sense that we're trying to figure out a list that is going to work for you. An idea list is your idea. This is the most creative, most awesome, and the coolest ones that we get to see on the table. I will say they probably have the lowest amount of success, just because if it's such a good idea, everyone already would be using it. But you pull up with something like this at a casual tournament, or better yet, a really competitive tournament, you can catch people off guard, and you'll see these guys enter the top 8 all the time. Travis was a massive Sabine player, and he won a Worlds invite with Sabine. So, go figure, but for the most part, he's not a bad player either. And yet he plays these kinds of lists all the time because these ideas that he has are so unique that when I'm playing my Anakin aggro list, I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, he's got 5 standbys out, and I can't just go charge him and go straight first at him. It was a really good game, and it made me think about the game very differently. And I know for Travis as well, he learned a ton playing against my list and playing this list. So this is a great example of something that wouldn't just be an idea list, but something that is extremely counterintuitive of how most people are playing this game, in the sense that it's like a, come at me, bro. I'd love for you to just charge straight first. All the prepared positions gets him on the board for good positioning as well really early. This is an idea list, and this is what I encourage you guys the most to do, is if you love list building and you're always looking to be that guy that's got the best idea, this is what you're going for. And this is a really cool list to see, and then regardless of if it's really good or really bad, your opponent is almost always going to be like, that's pretty cool. I like what you did there. So this list gets a little street cred is how we'll say it. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is for you guys is I am going to actually build 2 lists in front of you to show you my thought process of, okay, what makes a good list, what objectives are we going to pick, and what battle plans, secondaries, whatever. Okay, we're going to do the whole thing, and I'm going to do it pretty quick, so I'm only going to give myself a little bit of time, but I've asked Jared and Travis to actually send me a couple ideas for what they would like to see on the channel. So Travis has asked for Den, and that is what we are going to do. We are going to make a Den list. So I am going to pick Rebels because I think Empire is not that good. So there's my first thing. I am going to go in here and I'm going to pick Leia, and I am going to pick Rebel Officer. The first thought process is to always do my commanders first and throw Din in here. Now the reason I asked them to give me a list character or an idea is one of them gave me a character and one of them gave me an idea. Star Wars Legion, there's so many different characters that you guys love to play, and I met so many guys that are like, nah, I just love Darth Vader, like I'm putting him on the table. Perfect. This is how we're gonna make a list with that. So once again, I got my 2 commanders. I should have put Din in here first. There he is. Boom. We're going to kid him out. Okay, this guy loves Din. I love Din. We're giving him Grogu. Yup. We're giving him the Flamer. We're going to give him the jetpack, obviously. And then I am going to go with up close and personal, and I am also going to go with, not situational awareness. That's a bad pick. We're going to go with tenacity. Okay. So with all of these different things, we've now got our mainstay out here. I am actually going to go ahead and I am going to put in a couple other different people. I'm going to put in 3 Rebel sleeper cells because I know they are really good, and I think they're going to work great with Din. I think we're going to go for one of those, maybe not aggro lists, but a little more well-rounded than that. I'm then going to toss in 4 Rebel troopers with the ion gun, the captain, and they're all going to get situational awareness because we are going to be dodging it up. We're going to get 2 copies of Vigilance. We're going to give the Rebel Officer portable scanners. Leia's going to get portable scanners because why not? And she is going to take Underworld as well because I think... Nah, we're not taking it. Yeah, we'll leave Underworld on there for now. We'll come back to it. So we got 870 points at 10 activations already. I'm almost always shooting for at least 9. Some of you guys are starting off to get in the game are like, I don't really have enough points to make a full 1,000 or really get past that 9 activations. That's okay. It is not the end of the world. I really didn't want to do this, but I think I am going to go ahead and put IG-11 in this list, and I'm going to give him the bounty programming, and I am going to give him Hunter. The main reason I'm going to do this is I really do want to put him in here to get that double bounty opportunity, is I think that IG is going to be able to sit back with the rest of this gun line and help out a lot, as well as be able to score me some additional objectives. So I am going to go ahead and do the double bounty play. But with all of this being said, we've got about 14 points to play with. I will give IG-11 recon intel to get him up there a little bit quicker. And then, let's see, what else do we want to add here? I think that I will throw in for Din Djarin, give him a comms jammer to make it even worse. So, this is our list. And I have used about a couple minutes to do that, but for the most part, I really want to focus on what goes in my mind of why I pick these things. So first thing, I know a good foundation of a Rebel list is getting some Rebel troopers with dodges, a very solid unit that I can start my list there. I know the same thing is true for sleeper cells. They're going to be good, they're going to be going towards my opponent and throwing big pools of dice to delete units off the table. Din does not have big dice pools. I know that for a fact, okay? His Flamer is going to give him 1 turn of that. His 2-pip is going to get him a lot of shooting, but he still has very minimum dice pools. He's not going to go win a game on his own. But what he is going to do is fly around and be a massive tool, or kind of almost like a Swiss Army knife in this army. And so I've had that same process. I want to play Din. He's a Swiss Army knife, and so my army is going to be the same way. I've got the sleeper cells that can walk up, delete a unit. I've got the rebel troopers that can kind of move up if they need to with the agile to go score objectives, or just sit back at range 3 and blast away. I've got massive support in my rebel officer and Leia to make sure that they have tons of good support going in the whole time. Leia's even got 3 dodges she can hand out, give 1 to herself, 1 to the officer, and 1 to Mando, all kinds of stuff. Went ahead and put Grogu on here as well, but this is a solid list that we can work with. IG-11 is going to give 2 bounty opportunities, which I think is huge, and he's just going to lay down some fire. So, command-wise, this is a little bit tougher with IG. We have to bring his 3-pip, which is the main reason I didn't want to put him in here. I'm going to put in Din's 1 and 2-pip for now. I'll hold off on the other, and then I'm going to go with the masterful Sabotage Comps. Now, you may be asking, why not Leia Organa's 1-pip? The bombardment's fine, but if you're not playing at turn 1, you might find yourself in a position where you're just too close to the enemy. And I just think that the 1-pip here with Sabotage Communications has so much more play. And better yet, since we took Underworld, we can give it to either IG or Mando, or heck, a sleeper cell if all hell breaks loose. I am then going to continue with No Time for Sorrows, as that's going to be able to give us Mando movement, maybe even IG-11 movement, or better yet, the sleeper cells with that free move from it is going to give them an aim and a dodge. Well, a dodge if they're on the objective, but with range 1, you're going to get it. With this being said though, a really versatile card that might be able to win us some games just off that. The last question we kind of have to ask ourselves is we have 1 3-pip left. We could do Din's 3-pip, so I would leave this up to the people. I think with the current list that we have here, I would actually go with Somebody Has to Save Our Skins or Covering File. I'm just going to pick Somebody Has to Save Our Skins. And then battle plans wise, we will do Bunker Assault with all of my special forces and the sleeper cells. I'm going to have great movement. I'm going to have great speed to get up the board and pressure bunkers immediately with a good backline to hold my own. I am also probably going to go ahead and pick Recover the Research. We have enough acts. Once again, speed is our key point here. And honestly, this one might be a little bit scarier. I'm thinking Breakthrough. But honestly, with everything we have, I'm actually going to go with Intercept Signals, because I think Mando's going to be able to sit on the point with Grogu and hold off. But you could also go Breakthrough here with all of your aggro with the 3 sleeper cells and Mando. You're going to be able to do some serious damage turn 1. Plus, all of your rebel troopers are actually going to get to do stuff as well. With all your defense, you might be able to hang on pretty easily. We're definitely going marked targets. That's a double whammy if we pick commanders or operatives with the bounty token to also make them marked targets. All of a sudden, I have 2 victory points begging to be claimed. I am also going to go with Sweep and Clear, as we have such a versatile list that I think I can take out my opponents from afar or up close. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw, Recon Mission on here. Advantages, I almost always do the same. Advanced Intel, automatically include it in your list. It's the best advantage by a mile. I'm going to pick Cunning Deployment because we have 2 exemplar dodge spamming fools in the background. And then I will probably go ahead and put Strafing Run on here. And that's the list. Bada bing, bada boom. We have the list of what we are doing. Okay, so this is the final list here with Leia Organa, Rebel Officer, IG-11, Din Djarin, 4 Rebel Troopers, and 3 Rebel Sleeper Cells. All of this stuff together is going to make for a pretty spicy meatball and help us out with the Din. All right, so for this last part, I went ahead and made it for you guys, but the idea here was to go, go, go. And the person that asked for this list was not Jared, but he wanted all of the lightsabers that you could feasibly really put in an Empire list. So here you go. The idea was as many lightsabers as possible. So we had the character in Mando as a list idea, and now we have, I want a bunch of lightsabers. Great. Our childhood imaginations do not have to be restricted to only casual lists. We can make lists that are good. We can make lists that are fun, exciting, what you want to play, and still be competitive. This one, Invader, Force Choke, Burst Speed, Into the Fray, and Tenacity. 7th Sister and 5th Brother are here. They both have Burst of Speed and their Inquisitor's Training. 1 Into the Fray, 1 Tenacity. We've got a doubled up Flamer Snowtrooper squad, 2 DLT Stormtroopers, and then we have 3 dewbacks with T-21 Blaster, Tenacity, and HQ uplink. So, what is the idea behind this list? It's pretty straightforward. Play Vader's 2-pip either turn 1 or 2, and every single one of these units will be tied up in melee unless they're dead. That's the idea. Turn 2, I'm going to be in melee with you. And it's not negotiable, like it's happening. With Burst of Speed, you can give the 5th Brother and 7th Sister the 2 orders from Vader's card. I'll pull it up right here. The new ways to motivate them. They're going to take a wound to do a free action, which is probably going to be a move. And then you're going to get 3 Burst of Speeds, maybe 2, to get up in your opponent's lines, while you also have dewbacks that can do the exact same thing. So maximizing movement with this card, every single thing in this list is going full-fledged crazy towards your opponent. So with all this being said, that's the last list idea. Sometimes you're going to have characters you want to play, list ideas, but as long as you remember some of these basic list concepts, you're going to be able to find an idea that works for you. So go back to any point in this video and pick the one that you're like, you know what, I like the sound of that, or I like the look of that. And ask yourself how you can make a list that matches that with your collection. Feel free to put in the comments below things that you want to build a list around, and I'd be happy to talk to you guys about this stuff. We're super excited to continue the tactics talk and different things, but one of the biggest passions I have is helping new players get better, and I think list building is the absolute one of the most important steps in that process, is when you go from just having enough to play an army to, okay, now I want to sit down and think about what's going to help me win. You don't have to go to the top 8 of every tournament to pick your favorite list and win with it. You can make your own list and be successful. I'll say this as a super competitive player, the most fun I have in competitive scenes is when I bring a list that I built, that I made with an idea or some love. It's a Gunline, it's an aggro list, it's a well-balanced list, or it's an idea list. Who knows? It's way more satisfying to make your own list than go copy one off the top 8. But if you want to do that as well, there's nothing wrong with it. Just understand that list building is a key part of you getting better at the game. So that's it for me. We'll see you guys next time.